Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Coding. In this episode, we're gonna talk about Greeble once again. Greeble, if you Google search it, you will find short descriptions, basically a way to add details very quickly for a large surface. I think it's really good for environment, for building details, and you might have seen this in the movie like Star Wars. And Greeble is actually really powerful. It's an old classic way to do things. These days, people actually sculpt it and then turn it into displacement or normal maps. But Greeble is like I like Greeble because you can be a little bit more random. Look at these Greebles. It's like very interesting. And yeah, let's try to cover it from the very basic. But what I will be using is Blender cycles in this case. For the Greeble objects, it's actually just something that I manually set up. So this is just a bunch of objects. If I separate by loose part, now I should be getting all separate objects. Let me do that real quick. So now I have all these separate objects, but you might notice that there's this black and white and grayscale color that goes across the objects. That's actually coming from cycles, and this is something that later I render using this camera looking from top down, and what we will be getting is something like this. This is gonna be the Greeble map that we can use for displacement. So the actual setup in Cycle is actually very simple. If you look at it, this is something that I learned from Kenneth Graham. It's from Blender Procedural texture group on Facebook. So this simple setup will allow you to create this kind of like a depth from one direction. Yeah, like I said, this is the old school way of doing things, but it's simplest and maybe something you want to do. And I will be doing manual greebling, but at some point I will try to use Sverchok add-on or animation nodes to set up random greebles. You can also use something like JSPlacement. Just before I forgot, JSPlacements allow you to generate quite high details abstract pattern that allows you to create greebles as well. So there's a lot of ways to do this, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with learning the traditional way to do it. So let's start from scratch. I'll rebuild the whole thing, but maybe just do the basic one. So imagine if we have like some kind of bounding box. So this is going to be the bounding box, and I'll just make it a little bit shorter. So within the square is where our Greeble is going to be. So I'll place just a bunch of objects. It can be anything. Doesn't matter. Maybe make 4 of these and then make a cube. But we're going to have a floor as well. This one, a little bit like that. More complex Greeble is actually quite interesting. I mean, it's an art form in itself. We're gonna have the plane. This is gonna be the kind of like the center point of our Greebles. Let's see if we need to have some cones or just have more cubes. Normally cubes and cylinders, just simple objects, but you also can use booleans to add more detail. It's just, I think that's kind of okay. Let's save this on the desktop. Greeble, cycles Greeble. We're gonna switch to cycles render. So basically we want to render this now from the top. If you can't see anything, maybe just turn on ambient occlusions so you can see that's sort of the design you're gonna have. I don't know, maybe we need more detail with this guy. Go to edit modes, the face, maybe extrude it, scale it down, extrude it down, so you have that kind of little bit of details, maybe even there, smaller, scale it. Yeah, I think that's kind of okay. Too basic, but it's okay. So we're gonna select all of this guy. We're gonna get rid of the bounding box. Select all. I'm gonna join them, or actually in this case, I'm not gonna join them yet. I'm gonna switch to compositing. And let's get rid of that. Create a cycles material. It's not gonna be diffuse, it's gonna be emissions. Plug that in, and if we render this now, we have one object fully white, is emitting a white color. We can select everything, select this object last, tap A, and then select this object last, and then Control L, material. So now every object is gonna emit white color. Okay, go to the top view, and maybe I should set up the camera now, but before I do that, let's do the material connection really quick. So we need geometry, and we also need object info. With this guy, we should know the position in the world and the locations. This is, I think, the location for each vertices, if I'm not wrong. But basically, we need to use vector math and subtract this guy with this guy. And as a result, we have some kind of vector, but we need to separate the vector into x, y, z, and simply looking at the z, not the x, not the y, but we can have a look what's we're gonna get. See, that's what we get if we are using the x, this is the y, and this is the z. So now it started to make sense, right? However, you might notice that if I move the objects, the gradient seems to be staying at the center, right? That's not what you want. What you want is that you want to select, maybe select all these objects and then just apply transform, or let's try, I think Control A and then apply locations. And by doing that, I think you are kind of resetting every object at its position. And by doing that, you will get this kind of a displacement map looking from every angle. Okay, now if you look at it from the top, it's almost like our Greeble. It's gonna be our displacement map from one angle. So at this position, so if I go to the top view and then do I have camera? I don't have camera yet. I think I delete everything. So I will create a camera. From this position, I will align the camera to view. And our camera should be, I'll just make it simple, square, 1024 by 1024 pixels. And then I will adjust it. The camera, so it is orthographic, no perspective whatsoever. And here I will adjust the scaling. And if I want to move the camera, I'll lock the camera to view. I'm gonna move it while holding shift. And yeah, kind of like frame our displacement, Greeble displacement. Once we've done that, it's we are ready to render. Just render it out. So this is gonna be our Greebles. All these variations of white, black, and grayscale. It's gonna give us that displacement quality. So this is done. I'm just gonna save it. Save it as Greeble Me 2. And save the blend. Create a new blend. And here I will save as test Greeble. And for the test Greeble, I will be using Sverchok to create the plane. I will use vMesh viewer here, plug this thing, center it. Now we can increase the resolutions, 20 by 20, 400 points. Now you can turn on normalize. So this guy, we can adjust the scale and resolutions, I think, from here without changing the actual unit size. So the step doesn't work anymore. You control the size here. Okay, so now we have an object. Maybe we also want to turn on fixed vertex count. And here we will use displacement. And we're gonna point out our Greeble and check out the result. So the Greeble, we can also use subdivision surface here, put it on the top, increase the resolution. So now you can see our Greeble is doing its job. We can try controlling the strength. So here we have actually like a super high-res displacement on the super high-res objects. How many? But it's pretty fast and interactive, so that's pretty cool. I can't remember why I'm using Sverchok for this. Oh, that's because we can control the resolutions much more easily. Of course, you can also use the subdivision there. So if I'm using just a normal plane, 4 points. If I'm using subdivision here, I can use simple, and I can use the subdivision, use the displacement, deformations, use our texture, and this is also something you can use to test the Greeble. The maximum is 6, but you can always use more. This one maybe is simple. So that's really high res. You can see the displacement is working for us. You might also, so currently I think we are just working between black and white. I'm not sure if displacement can actually push it down. Maybe it can. But yeah, anyhow, this is what we get. I think I can increase this also. See the effects. If you are using Sverchok add-on and you turn on the fixed vertex count, this actually gives you quite interesting way to work. To test the Greeble, because at any point you can also use different objects. Torus, plug it in. And maybe here I need to turn off this guy for now. So we have our Greebles working on the torus. Something that I forgot probably with this Greeble, the Greeble is not really good on this one because we probably need more details on the side so that we don't have this weird gap. Other than that, this is basically how you want to create a Greeble. The simplest way, you can do it manually, but of course, let's save this. And if you go back to Greeble creator, our Greeble creations, we can always add more details, right? And yeah, so that's basically the idea. So yeah, hopefully you find this useful anyhow, and let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.